All right, Karan asked this. Who's your ideal potential opponent for round one? I'll tell you what, I said it yesterday before the game, and I say it again after the game. I don't want to meet Seattle in round one. I don't want the Canucks to meet Seattle in round one. I think that would be, I don't want to say disaster, but if you win the Western Conference, right, and you get the worst, the second wild card team as your playoff opponent, and it's the Seattle Kraken, good luck. Like, I don't want to run into the Seattle Kraken in round one. That would not be a good thing for the Canucks. I don't like that. I like
Wait, so
Nashville.
okay, so this was about who we'd like to see, right? Not
Who would
avoid.
you like to see them run into? Yeah, in round
Yeah.
one. Who's the most ideal?
Okay, I'm gonna assume Calgary is not gonna make it, just for the purposes of this conversation. Although they're still kind of hanging around, they're 3 points back of St. Louis with an extra game played. But yeah, I mean Calgary, that would be ideal. But if not, Nashville to me definitely stands out. I mean, they are pretty consistently a team that can make the playoffs, but then fold pretty quickly in recent times. They don't have enough, I think, offensive depth. Their first line with O'Reilly, Nyquist, and Philip Forsberg has been really dynamic, but after that, they don't get enough offense. UC Saros hasn't really been his usual spectacular self, and the blue line, while it's decent, it doesn't scare me. There's just nothing really about that Nashville team that I look at and go, oh boy, that's terrifying. I don't like even with St. Louis, for example. Um, some of the ways that they create offense off the rush, quick strike, you're like, okay, like that's not the greatest match for Vancouver. But with Nashville, it's like, yeah, they've got some decent players, but I'm not scared of Nashville.
Yeah. Uh, I would also say, like, and again, I don't know if we're going this low, right? Because I like you brought up with Calgary, it might be cheating a little bit to bring up this team, but like Minnesota, Canucks could stomp Minnesota in a 7 game series. I know some Wild fans can clip this if they meet in round one and the Wild win, but yeah, like I think in my hierarchy, like I would go number one is Minnesota, number two is obviously Calgary, number three is Nashville, and then there's a big drop off where I don't think you want to meet St. Louis, and you don't really want to meet Seattle in round one either. And I think Seattle's kind of the one that I think would be, like I said, I keep saying quietly a tough opponent. I think they would surprise a lot of people if Vancouver and Seattle met in round one. I'll give you one, Harm, because they're at risk of falling in the wild card standings. The LA Kings.
I wouldn't want to play LA either, to be honest. I know they've been spiraling, but that's a team that, for example, last year in the playoffs, they gave Edmonton a pretty tough test, even though Kevin Fiala wasn't healthy for most of the series. And he's their main
That's true.
offensive game breaker, right? Even the year before, when they were the surprise team, they took Edmonton to game 7. And I know, yeah, okay. So what you're saying is that they were close, but they didn't win either time. Sure. But now I think on paper, they're an upgraded team, even though the standings results may not show it yet. I think when they're at their best, that Gavrikov Roy second pair can be really, like, I've seen them play really effective shutdown hockey. And down the stretch, when they were first united, they were one of the best shutdown defensive pairs in the NHL. They've loosened up a bit recently, but they have the ability to build that chemistry together. And that's when you look at their blue line, and even though they don't have the biggest names, like, quietly they can be really good in that sense. And especially, the forward situation they have with how many two-way pieces. I don't like the idea of Philip Deneau going up against one of Vancouver's whatever Vancouver's top line ends up being, because Deneau has this history of being able to shut down, whether it was Matthews when he was with Montreal and they made that surprise run, or he's had some effective moments against the McDavid line. I don't love that. So yeah, I'd prefer not to play LA either. Although I'm not saying like LA would be favorites by any stretch of the imagination, but again, I'd much rather in Nashville.
I absolutely agree with you. Nashville's the one. Nashville's the one. Like, that's the team that you want to hit. Cody Chong in the Facebook chat said, XL Energy Center is a house of horrors. No to that round one matchup. All right. I'll accept that. But I think we can all agree Nashville is the team that you want to face. And again, some Nashville fan out there is going to find this if Vancouver and Nashville meet and Nashville bumps Vancouver out in round one. I think Nashville might be that team. I just don't know about LA's goaltending. I don't want to get into it, obviously, because it's just, it's a smaller conversation, but yeah, I think about LA, and I think you're right with the shutdown ability that they might have. They're gonna put it together. If not all, they already kind of have started to put it back together after that disastrous skid that led to them firing their coach. They're starting to put it back together. And look, Quentin Byfield's not getting any worse. I think that's the other thing to
I
consider, right?
know,
Is like
yeah.
we've seen what Quentin Byfield's been up to this week. Like that dude is not getting any worse. And again, yeah, they might be a team that you increasingly more every year don't want to meet in the playoffs, even though they did hitch their wagon to Pierre-Luc Dubois, which means they'll never win a cup. They'll still be kind of a team you don't want to meet, I don't think.
Yeah, and they're just a team that when they're at their best, they allow nothing defensively. So that to sort of talk about the goaltending aspect, yeah, I mean it's obviously a potential concern for them, but when they are rolling, they can sort of follow that Vegas template of they have Aiden Hale back there. But if you don't allow anything off the slot, if you don't allow anything off the rush, as LA did for a good chunk before this recent slide, then your goaltender doesn't have to do much. It's a pretty predictable sort of environment system to play in, and um, LA's underlying numbers are really dominant in terms of controlling possession, controlling scoring chances. They do, even with Byfield improving, they do lack. Like I don't love the fact that they don't have any offensive stars. Um, I, I still think they're missing the top of the lineup, like JT Miller, Elias Pettersson, types that Vancouver obviously does, but they're a deep team also in that their third and fourth lines can also be really solid and chip in. And so, yeah.
Canucks Conversation with Harmon and Quads every weekday at 2 p.m. Be sure to check it out on the Canucks Army YouTube channel. And if you missed it, go check it out on your favorite podcast catcher app.